Welcome to the Becoming babyREADY podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. I'm really excited to introduce you to Christine today. Christine is an officiant with Woven Threads, and we talk a lot about the different journeys and celebrations that she has had the honor of being invited to officiate over, whether they're showers or weddings or whatever it is. You won't want to miss this episode. Stay tuned. Well, hello, everyone. I am extremely excited to be sitting here today having a conversation with Christine, and I'm going to let you tell us who you are and what you do. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much. Christine Lafazanos. I usually go by Chris, she, her pronouns, and I run my own business as a life cycle celebrant, as a ceremony guide called Woven Threads, Handcrafted Ceremonies. So as a celebrant, I work with people to create meaningful, custom, story-filled ceremonies to help mark important milestones. So I do a number of weddings and commitment ceremonies. I also do end-of-life ceremonies like celebrations of life and memorials, and then do a bunch of beginning of life ceremonies. So ceremonies to welcome new children into families, be it by birth or adoption. Yeah, that's a little bit.
That's so neat. And it's something that you don't hear about as often
Yeah.
as we probably should, because we like to mark milestones and celebrate. But the traditional ways that things have been done in the past don't always resonate with many of us. And
Yeah.
so to know that there's someone like you out there who can help us do the things in a way that makes more sense for us as individuals than has been traditional, as I say, in the past is really cool. I really love that.
Yeah. A number of times, most of the ceremonies I do are non-religious. Some are like spiritual but not religious. I have like earth-based spiritual practices myself, so I often draw people who are interested in that. But for a number of people, when I ask them, like, what are you interested in, or what do you want or don't want for the ceremony, there's this like often like knee-jerk defensive reaction that's like non-religious. And it's like, for me and for so many people, we've been burned by the religion of our upbringing, especially if we're queer. You know, we might have been told sexuality flat out is like sinful, let alone this kind of one, right?
Yeah.
And so we're at this interesting juncture of a lot of people having demographically a lot of people having left the religious traditions of their ancestors of maybe just a couple of generations, maybe still holding a lot of hurt from those traditions. And so anything that looks like religion, which ceremony and ritual, some of that language, people are kind of like, eh. Or it's like we don't know that there are options outside of that, right? It's like, well, you can make something that is actually meaningful and significant and tells your stories. It doesn't have to look like any of what you're scared of or apprehensive about, right? But that's a journey that everyone's on, and not everyone's like ready to look at that, and I get that. But there's a number of us who are kind of like feeling the absence and feeling the hunger and feeling the draw. And so that's who I'm there for, to be like, okay, what are your intentions? Let's help put that intention into practice, into something that's up on its feet, that's stories, that's movement, that's action.
Yeah. Love that. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell all of us how your work can specifically help or benefit the 2S LGBTQIA+ community start or grow their families? Or I suppose your work is probably less around the starting of the family and more about the just discovering and having their family start or grow.
Yeah. So I feel like the role of ceremony is really well suited for getting grounded in meaning and intention, for creating a space of being witnessed and held and seen, right? Like you think of the different points along people's journey that I've helped them with ceremony. I've helped folks who like couples who are like adopt ready, right? Like they've done like a year's worth of process. They're at the point where they're like, they've jumped through all the hoops, they've got all the check marks, everything is approved. They're expectant parents, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not visible to their community
Right.
because they're not pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So to it created for that couple that I'm one of the couples I'm thinking of in particular, it created a space to have their journey be validated and seen and to have people celebrate with them,
Right.
something that took a lot of like love and energy to be able to do, right? Or something like a first time parent who is pregnant and expecting and has chosen to gather like her closest like female identified like friends and relatives around her, and they're offering support and reflecting back to her all the skills and strengths that she has that will serve her well as a parent, right? It's that bolsters confidence, that like supports community. I'm helping a family who are having like a meaningful version of like a baby shower. It's like not about presents, but more about like stories.
Sure.
and
Sure.
um and part of it is kind of like in a soft and approachable way, kind of educating their families who are joining them about what it's like being a queer family and what the particular vulnerabilities are of like a non-birthing parent in a queer family, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the language is donor, not father, and like you can't like we don't want questions about the donor, and but like ask about how we're doing and how the baby's doing, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so there's some education that's
Sure.
part of it too. It's like let's create a space where we can all get on the same page, and it's like this is what care and support can look like in really tangible ways, and
Sure.
doing that in ways that is like grounded in meaning, right? It's like maybe you're looking at maybe beginning of life ceremonies for your family is part of some early conversations around what do we want our celebration of the year to look like? What do we want our annual calendar of celebrations and milestones to look like as a family? It's like how does ceremony and ritual support us being grounded in meaning in this family? And so it can be a beautiful stepping stone from which to build further milestone events for maybe the child as they grow up, or marks in the calendar year that you want to emphasize as a family. Yeah.
That's really, it's fascinating, and it's not something I'd thought about before, but it's something that I wish I had thought about more when my children
Yeah.
were young, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's difficult, right? Like it takes a lot of energy to keep kids alive and to keep yourself thriving, right? And so it can be easy to fall into like the patterns of like what's available around you. It's like, okay, birthday party looks like let's buy some balloons, let's have some presents, let's have some cake, and it's
Yeah.
like this is what a baby shower looks like. And so it's difficult if you're going out on your own to be able to reimagine like a ritual and
Right.
then introduce your family to it and get them on board, right? Like there's so much that's sort of rolling already in our culture. So doing something different takes support and it takes like a certain inclination. So
And
yeah, you're not
energy.
alone in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and energy,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're not alone in that. Yeah, there's no I wouldn't want anyone to like shame or judge themselves
Oh,
for
no,
like,
no, no.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't, but I do wish that I'd given that more thought. But you're right, you get caught up in the moment, and if you don't know that there are services that exist, then you don't know
yeah,
where to start to try and
yeah,
so you think, okay, I'll just do this because it's easy and it's here.
yeah,
But
yeah,
even if it doesn't really speak to your soul or who you are
yeah,
as an
yeah,
individual, right?
yeah, yeah. The pressures of family who are like, oh, are you gonna have a baby shower? And you're like,
I
I guess
guess.
so, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that can be tough. Yeah.
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 Are there things that you might look for working in the capacity that you do that your clients would argue make you better suited to work with the 2S LGBTQIA plus community than perhaps heterosexual professionals who work in a similar capacity?
There's there's a beautiful like sense of like safety that I know my clients have and people who work with me, of like feeling like they're going to be respected, seen, understood. You know, I work with a lot of like non-binary and trans folks, and so it's like that assurance that someone's going to understand what your pronouns are and be able to respect that and understand what your name is,
Yeah.
and use that, and to understand the particular like needs and pressures and expectations and opportunities that come with being a queer family, right? And to have a space where people don't have to like, because we all feel that, right? As queer people, everywhere we go, we're always kind of like, am I going to be treated with respect? Are you going to get who I am? And am I going to feel welcome here? Am I going to be like harassed or in danger here, right? At the extreme ends. And so just being able to create a space that's like, I see you, you're welcome here, I celebrate you. Oftentimes I understand you, but if there's something I don't understand, because I am a queer person, but not all queer people, right? So
Right.
then it's
100%.
like,
Yeah.
but it's like it's a safer entry point for like, oh, this is what we prefer and this is what we hold true and this is what we value. And but just there's just so much of that like translating that doesn't need to happen, because I'm part of the community, so I get it a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
I get how queer families might have a different structure, and it might be a non-monogamous family, and like I get what like intersectional feminism is all about, and the different like intersecting challenges and opportunities that people who hold different identity positions face, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
Are there any pearls of wisdom that you have learned over the years that your clients are especially lucky to learn from you that they may not learn from someone else?
Yeah, that really we can do things however the F we want to do things, right? That like the norms and conventions and traditions of ceremony and ritual around family life or beginning of life aren't your only option, right? Gender reveal parties make me want to puke in my mouth. And I
Yeah.
think they're terrible for humanity. And it's like, you don't have to do that. and
No.
and the baby showers I've been exposed to feel like they're about stuff and a little bit less about supporting the
Mm.
expectant parents or gathering wisdom from. I remember going to this one baby shower, and there were like, it was like, sometimes people will do baby showers that are kind of like, you know, sex segregated, right? So that all the
Mhm.
women are getting together, which from the start for a lot of queer people is like, what is that? That doesn't resonate with how my community looks.
Yeah.
But anyway, this one where like the in the room, the number of people who were parents, like the number of mothers who had raised children, like there was collectively about like 20 children that had been raised by the women in the
Wow.
room. And it's like, this quilt you made is beautiful and I'm so grateful. And thank you for buying this like adorable wooden toy. But also, could we spend some time sharing some wisdom from
Yeah.
all of these years of experience, right?
Yes.
Could we create space for the parents to be like, I'm terrified about X, Y, and Z, and have the people around them be like, oh my gosh, these are all the ways that you got this, right? Yeah. Remind me of the question. I lost my train of
I was
thought.
I was just asking if there's any pearls of wisdom that you have.
Yeah. 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 So we can do things differently. And I mean, that's one thing that often by necessity, like we've learned as queer people, right? It's sort of like
Mhm.
we're often like on the margins or not the norm. And we've been forced in many ways to create different systems of support and create different styles of relationship that maybe didn't fit the norm. So I think that is kind of also our superpower, that we're kind of used to like doing things our own way and
Mhm.
creating imagining something new and reclaiming things and creating our own meaning. So I love when people work with me and they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Or it's like, I
Right.
didn't know that I didn't have to do that. Right. And it's like, do you want to call your ancestors into the space? Like, do you want to talk about why you chose a gender neutral name for your child? Let me introduce you to like this suite of options that you
Mhm.
have, that doesn't have to be so like prescripted and scripted and narrow and sort of like, well, this is what we do. It's like, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
No, there's no, this is what we do when you work with me. Yeah.
Fair enough. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
This episode of Becoming Baby Ready is brought to you by Twig Fertility, a modern fertility clinic located in Midtown Toronto. At Twig, we believe that everyone deserves to build a family. We champion inclusivity and welcome people from across the full spectrum of lived experience. We proudly serve the 2S LGBTQIA+ community and are a trans-affirming space, offering a full range of family-building options, including third-party coordination. For more information or to book a consult, visit twigfertility.com.
It sounds, and often what we experience as members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community is that we are made to feel like the other.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is specifically why this show is called Not the Other Baby Show, because we get to be the focus for a change. Well, not me, I'm finished, but those young ones coming behind me. But are there specific times in your life when you have been made to feel like the other that you sort of help formulate how you do the work you do now?
Yeah. I think that entirely informs the work that I do now.
Sure.
As someone who's queer and like divorced and non-monogamous and a total weirdo and like artsy and nerdy, right? It's like I do ceremonies for people like me.
There you go.
Because walking in the wedding industry, you're like, what is all this heterosexual like focus on like spectacle over meaning, like big lavish, like money equals value, and you're like, what? And then like Babyland, also very straight, also very like focused on like stuff and image, and you're like, is it about like how expensive your stroller is? Like, what?
Well, that's how we met, is at a cisgendered, heteronormative focused baby show. And we both saw a lot of that weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so I exist to be able to create a safe haven for the people who don't belong elsewhere.
You know what? Fair enough to say it like that, but yes, creating a safe space for people who don't feel like they fit into that box.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm constantly learning, but I like to think that I try and bring a sensitivity and awareness to the diversity of identity positions that people can hold and how that impacts how I can serve them. It's like, what are the accessibility needs that you have during a ceremony? Do you have pain or restriction with certain movements? And like, are you like, how can we like help manage your anxiety in this like thing where you're in front of like a group of people? What does it mean to come to the table with an immigrant experience or with a family for most people English is their second language, and so it's like, okay, how about we translate some of the ceremony so that it happens in two languages, or can I get it to you ahead of time enough that you can create a translation of it so that loved ones can sort of follow along and be included? Or it's like, how do we recognize your ancestry and the different identities you hold, and how could we bring those into like the ritual action or the readings or the different content of the ceremony, right? So it's trying to understand the complexity and the multiplicity of people's identities, and how to create a space that respects that and doesn't just have this like narrow assumption of like what normal is and only serves that, right? It's like, family dynamics are complex, and too often for 2S LGBTQ folks, there can be tensions in families of origin. So it's like, how do we create ceremony and ritual that is honest to the fact that some people there feel like they support you, and some people there feel like they don't get you, and they haven't got you for the last 20 years, right? And so it's like, whereas I don't know, it's like, I feel like you might work with someone who's straight, and they'll be like, oh, wedding, happiest day ever, your parents must be thrilled, and it's like, well, I don't talk to my father, he's an asshole.
And
it's like, and they're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And it's like, whereas I'm like, families are families, and like That's normal. And I'm sorry that you're moving through that challenge, but you're not alone. And here's different ways we can work with that, and yeah. So yeah, felt like the other most of my life. I feel like that makes me sensitive to the needs of other people who are also sitting in marginalized identities.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I have bias and you'll have some because you've agreed to participate in this show. And I recognize you are not a parent yourself, but if you were to had a family or have a family, do you feel like a show like this would have been or would be beneficial to you in your journey of transitioning from not being a parent to being a parent as a member of the queer community?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's really important to feel seen and understood. I feel like that's often a big like intention and role in ceremony, is to have who you are in your stories honored and valued and witnessed and like held or supported or celebrated, as the case may be, by your community. So being able to create spaces where you don't feel alone, where you can see your experiences reflected in other people's stories, where you can hear from people who've maybe already traveled down a road that you've been on,
Yeah.
and can share maybe some of their experience or maybe like advice or wisdom that might be supportive to you, right? But just sometimes being in the room together, you're just like, oh,
Yes.
thank you, right?
Yeah.
And then because you might you're not going to go to clinics with the 50, the whatever, the dozens of people that are going to be at the show. You can't take all of them with you to every appointment
Right.
and to
You
every
carry
like
your support team everywhere.
yeah, and to every parent group, but having that like kind of in your heart and having that like in your mind and being like, okay, maybe I have people I know I can go back to with these problems, or
Sure.
like maybe I feel like a little bit more confident to like advocate for my needs or
Yeah.
my rights, or maybe I've been pointed in the direction of service providers who will be able to see and understand and treat me with and my family with respect, right? That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really
100%.
important. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any last pieces of wisdom or information that you want to share that we haven't talked about yet?
Just to say that, yeah, there are so many different ways that ceremony can offer support. Like I said, I've worked with folks who are in an adoption process and who have held ceremony for being kind of adopt ready. I've worked with folks who are pregnant and are expecting, and how to create something meaningful with their family, and chosen family and loved ones, to be able to offer them support and celebrate with them. I frequently do like a child welcoming ceremony or like a baby naming ceremony. So once a little one has arrived, be it by birth or adoption, to again gather your people around you, to introduce them, to help celebrate, to ask really clearly for what kinds of support you need. Can you be a person I can call at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep and I'm
Yep.
feeling frustrated?
Yeah. Yes.
So it can be those types of ceremonies can be a really lovely mix of like meeting your heart-based needs and then meeting some really practical tangible needs of like, here is the meal train sign up list.
Yes, that's right. We'll email that to you as well.
Yeah. And so, or, to navigate through losses. I mean, if folks are in a journey of trying to get pregnant, managing and experiencing losses of pregnancy is not something that's uncommon. So,
Yeah.
as someone who works with sort of like the full life cycle of ceremonies, it's also an honor anytime I'm there to support loved ones who are grieving the loss of a pregnancy or of a young child. Those types of losses can often be too invisible, and something that can be kind of like hidden away or not talked about. But they're real and valid grief, and deserve to be supported through, and not just like, oh, you'll try again, sort of like blind,
Yeah.
like let's just disregard all the pain that you're in at this moment.
Yeah.
So, and those types of rituals can be really private things with like under 5 people, if that's what feels safest, or it can be something that you choose to gather your wider community around you to help grieve like the hopes and dreams that you had for that child and for your family that aren't going to happen now. We need to feel through those things. We need to feel through all of the things in order to be able to. It's like if you don't actively feel the feelings, they kind of leak out.
Yes, yeah, they will come out at some point, either intentionally or unintentionally. Yes.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So ceremony can be a beautiful thing to help when you need support, when you're in a major transition, when you have something big you want to celebrate, when there's a big identity shift, right? So yeah, for people to think about, to remember that that's an option for them and that they don't need to know what that looks like exactly. You know, that's when you work with someone who's like, oh, here, like I always start with like a free 30-minute chat with people. So I could be like, you could just be like, I feel like I want to do something. I don't know what that could look like. And I'm like, okay, here's 10 different things that could be involved in that kind of ceremony. Here's what that could look and sound like. Let me send you a sample of one. Let me send you a sample of certain rituals. And then people could go, now I can imagine that. And now I can decide what that can help me decide what I want and what feels good for me and what I need. Right. Yeah. And it's just one of many different forms of support. Some people aren't, they're like, I'd rather go on a 1 week solo camping trip or with me and my partner to be able to move through these feelings, and ceremony and ritual isn't something that I'm drawn to. It doesn't make it wrong if that's not a form of connection or creating meaning that you're drawn to. It works for some people and it's not on some people's radar, and that's okay too. Yeah.
It's supposed to be individual, right? Our feelings are supposed to be our feelings.
Yeah. And luckily there are many tools to be able to move through that, and many ways to create community and to stand in meaning. Maybe you're like, I'm going to write a shit ton of poetry about this, and that's how I'm going to move through it. And it's like, awesome, I'll buy that book. Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you? Because I am quite confident that you are going to have lots of people reaching out after listening to this conversation.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, you can find me online, my website and Instagram. So I'm at woven-threads.ca for my website, and woven_threads on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, but a little bit less active there. So my website and Instagram are the two best places to be able to learn a little bit more about me, see some price ranges, get in touch with me. Like I said, I always start with a free chat, and COVID has taught us that online gatherings can be really meaningful and significant. It can be a great way to draw loved ones together that live in a diversity of spaces. So you don't necessarily have to be limited by me living in the same city as you. If you're planning an online gathering, right? So people can send me a message and fill out a contact form, and we can talk, and I can just hear what people are wanting and offer options and just explore and see if we're a good fit. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with me today and having this conversation with me and letting the world know more about you and the work that you do.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate you creating this space of community. I know there's a lot of beautiful work and heartfelt intention that goes to creating a space like this. So thank you for all that you're doing on behalf of so many people who are going to benefit from this.
Thank you. That's very kind. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.